Welcome back, everyone, to a new episode of Ray Hall Talking College Ball. I am your host, Ray Hall. Let's dive right in and talk some college ball. So, it's obviously my Friday episode for the big game breakdown, or I think the name being floated around, at least the one comment I did see was Ray's Chalk Talk. So, before we get into Ray's Chalk Talk, we're going to do a little housekeeping. First thing I want to say is I very thoroughly enjoy the jokes about this week in college football. The SEC Cupcake Week, as it's been coined, I think it's a lot of the things that people are saying about it is hilarious. Um, what I will say to that is a two-parter. If you're a SEC hater, get these jokes in right now. Use it as much as you can for this week. Keep doing it. Do it as much as possible. Um, because after this year, the SEC moves to a 9 game schedule, interconference, and then they also have to play the one additional Power Four opponent. So it's going to look much different in that front. Obviously, the second part to that is if you're an SEC fan, you're probably pissed about that. Um, yeah, sure, the jokes and the jabbing could be annoying if you're a fan of one of these teams, but also we kind of saw the committee not reward the strength of schedule, and then you're signing your team up for one more, generally speaking, at least probably top 60 game, probably closer to top 40 opponent. So it's hard to get excited about that if you're an SEC fan because it's not being rewarded right now. I think that will change in the near future. But what do I know? It could very well not change. It could be the case where, yeah, we still aren't rewarding this. Where if you have losses, or bad losses outweigh good wins, and all of that mindset, which I can't really fathom. You guys heard my rant about that, where I think it's a lot easier to get a bad loss than it is to get a great top 15 win. But that's just my personal opinion on that. The one other funny thing about this week I will say is a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's a down week in college football. There's no big games going on," and I don't believe in coincidences. So I'm just trying to put it together. Then it's a down week in football versus the big matchups, and it's the same week the SEC isn't playing their normal SEC schedule and they're scheduling FCS or lower power or lower G5 teams. So I'm just looking at the correlation there. Not sure if I'm smart enough to figure that out. So if you guys can, let me know if you see anything with the numbers there. But anyways, we'll jump right into it and we'll headline with an SEC game. Missouri at Oklahoma. So it's the number 22 team traveling to the number 8 team. Oklahoma's getting 6.5 points at home, and the over/under is 42 and a half. I kind of mentioned it earlier this week that there's rumor Bo Prabula might play. To what capacity, we don't know. I'm not sure if it really matters in a sense. Bo Prabula is definitely a better passer than Zollers, but I don't think it's adding like Dan Marino to an offense. Missouri wants to do the same thing. They want to rely on Ahmad Hardy, and they want to try and play solid defense and hopefully get some explosive runs and take advantage in that way. Oklahoma has one of the best run defenses in college football, so I'm not sure how much is going to be there for Missouri. But the funny thing about run games is if you stay consistent with it and you don't abandon the run, which Missouri can't afford to do, so I don't expect them to. All it really takes is one bad fill, one great block, a little misdirection here or there to turn into what would be like a routine 3 yard gain, one broken tackle into a 75 yard house call. So I think Missouri just kind of has to beat the drum and stay consistent with the run game, which I expect them to do because it's not like they can really air it out. And I don't think Oklahoma's offense is at the point right now where they're going to get to such a big lead where Missouri can't afford to not air it out. So I Oklahoma. The real question is if they don't create turnovers, how many more wins or how many wins can they get? Now, obviously, turnovers is part of football. You can't just erase that. It's one of the most crucial stats when looking at successful teams. A lot of people get mad about this because sports books, power ratings, they can't really account for turnovers because there's a randomness to it. It's not always the offense making a bad play or the defense making a good play. It sometimes just crazy stuff happens. So turnovers isn't really can't be factored into lines. Um, so it's hard to kind of dictate the games and see how they're going to be playing out because turnovers is a huge part that you can't really factor in. But Oklahoma's been heavily turnover dependent this year. Um, all the games that they have won the turnover battle. I think exception with one or two. I think they were against a G5 opponent. But in Michigan, they won a turnover battle. Alabama, they won the turnover battle. Tennessee, they won the turnover battle. Now against Texas, they did not win the turnover battle. John Mateer actually threw 3 interceptions. It was the first game back though from his hand surgery. I'm not sure if that affected the decision making, but still it was there. And they kind of got blown out by Texas, who everyone's kind of cooled off on Texas as a elite team. So it shows that Oklahoma, if you put them in these situations where they have to press, they're still viable to make these mistakes. Um, can Oklahoma prevent what happened to Alabama last week? I'm not sure. And when I say that, I'll rephrase that. Can Missouri do to Oklahoma what Oklahoma did to Alabama last week? Can they kind of play the field position game, make it very hard for them on offense to get sustained long drives, and kind of just do just enough on defense to give your team a chance when it comes down to the final quarter? And that's what Oklahoma did, and they took advantage of all their chances. So they need to kind of look at the tape from the Alabama game and not study them as much as they need to study Alabama and see, okay, how did this team mess up? And it's really simple. They turned the ball over. They didn't get a sustained run game going to shorten the game. And when it was big time plays in the second half, they didn't make them. So I think Oklahoma has a pretty tough way to go with their 2 games left. Luckily, both of them are at home for the Sooners, but we'll have to see. I don't have a great feel one way or the other when it comes to the point spread in this game. Um, People are kind of saying like, "Wow, 6.5 points. That's a pretty." I did not expect that total. Basically, Oklahoma's only getting 6.5 at home, puts them around a 3.5 point favorite on a neutral field, and then probably close to a pick 'em if this game was at Missouri, with the way home field works, or at least within a field goal. But then you look at the point total; it's over 42.5, and a touchdown lead in a 42.5 game could be a lot. And then also it could be a what 24-10 game, and it was never in doubt. And Missouri scores a late touchdown and goes for 2 and converts because of analytics, and then they cover the spread. But these low point totals and tight spreads are always interesting to watch. But yeah, all right. Moving to the next game, USC at Oregon. This is Oregon's biggest game of the year at this point. Yes, they hosted Indiana. Indiana was a top 10 team. USC is not a top 10 team, but the kind of stakes around that game comparatively to where they are now is much different. Oregon has not had the benefit of having a good win on their schedule just because Penn State has kind of went off the rails. So right now you're looking at their best wins outside of USC, and it's kind of hard to compare it with some of these other top 10 teams. They're ranked where they're at because 1, the roster talent, 2, kind of the reputation, and then 3, they also only have 1 loss playing in a Power 4/Power 2 conference, but they really haven't had a win they can hang their hat on. I expect USC to kind of test Oregon here in a way that they haven't been tested since the Indiana game, and that's with Makai Lemon and Lane at receiver. I think they're going to be able to get after these guys, and it's really going to be, hey, can Mateo Ugolagole. I know I butchered that, but we're gonna go with that. Mateo U. Can he pressure the passer or quarterback? Can the defensive line for Oregon pressure the quarterback long enough or quick enough so that their defensive backs aren't forced to hold up against probably a top five, possibly top three wide receiver tandem in college football right now. On the other side of the ball is USC. Can you show up on the road? That's really the big question. USC has had many road struggles this year. Obviously, the Illinois game, the Notre Dame game, um, all of their kind of big time wins have come at home. They had the big road win, I believe it was against Nebraska. That game was on the road, but that was also a game Dylan Raiola was left with a broken leg. So, can Lincoln Riley get his team motivated and ready to play on the road? Also, can they stop Oregon's run game? Oregon hasn't had to rely on Dante Moore outside of really the Iowa game winning drive. Um, this year, they've been able to kind of just hand the ball off and let Dante Moore pick his spots, which I think could be good enough to beat this USC team. But what happens if USC really starts selling out for the run and the pressure kind of falls on Dante Moore? Is he going to step up and kind of take over the moment, or is he going to continue the struggles he's had? So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. Um, and then Lincoln Riley, you have been preaching, hey, we're getting better. This is not the same USC. We're changed. And I've already mentioned it. Can you get your guys up to play a road game? Because I know Dan Lanning is going to have his guys motivated. There's very, very few times you could probably point out where Dan Lanning didn't have his team motivated coming out of the locker room to play and win a game. So, Lincoln Riley, can you kind of match that energy? I'm not saying you need to do the same thing. If you're not the same coach, don't try and be that. You know, if you're a duck, don't try to be a lion, right? And I didn't mean to use a duck there for the Oregon reference. I was just trying to pick two different animals. But Lincoln Riley's not one of these rowdy, yell, get in your face coaches. So don't try and be that. Do that in the correct way that you think plays to your strengths and your team's strengths. So right now, really leaning in that game. I just think 10.5 is too much for the Trojans to get. I'm going to take the Trojans plus 10.5, and then I have another pick in that game that I'll go over towards the end when I go over my full card. All right, next game we're highlighting is Arkansas at Texas. Texas is 8.5-point favorites. Over under is 58.5. This game, I think it kind of tells you like, hey, Arkansas's offense is really good because playing against a Texas defense and this total is where it's at. And it also tells you, hey, this Arkansas defense is very bad because a team that has a struggling offense like Texas is still expected to put up around over 30 points. So I'm kind of interested to see how Texas reacts after losing to Georgia. Their season's kind of over at this point. Some people are saying a 3-loss Texas can get in. I'm not seeing it kind of with how the structure is set up. Obviously, that would require them to beat Arkansas and then Texas A&M next week, and that would probably be, unless Michigan went to Ohio State and beat them, that would be the best win in the college football season at this point. But I just don't see it for this Texas team. I think they're too flawed to match up with some of these elite level teams, which we've seen. And then here's the other side of the coin, Arkansas. This is a rivalry for them. Texas fans and the University of Texas will tell you that Arkansas isn't really a rival. And I think that pisses off Arkansas fans even more because Arkansas considers Texas a big major rival. Bobby Petrino has still not gotten his marquee win, even though I've been picking him to do it each and every week, and he keeps letting me down. He's been covering like a motherfucker, but he has not gotten that marquee win yet. So, do I think Arkansas is going to beat Texas? I don't know, but I think they're going to make it competitive at least. All right, moving on to this next game, Michigan at Maryland. Not really a big game. Maryland's getting 13.5 points as home dogs. Michigan obviously viable to be in a look-ahead spot, but I think they kind of snapped back to reality after playing Northwestern so close and almost having their season completely end just 1 week ago. But these are 18 to 22-year-old kids, so you can't really ever tell where their head's at. Michigan, I expect you to win this game. I think you've had too many close scares with the Purdue Northwestern game recently. I think your team's going to kind of figure it out. Like, okay, hey, we can't mess around. We're not good enough to mess around with these lower level Big Ten teams, and they're going to kind of step on it. And then also, even if they beat Ohio State, it's not a lock that they would make it into the college football playoff. So with what wins they have left, they kind of need to have some style points. I haven't heard word one way or the other on Justice Haynes if he's going to play this week. Obviously, that'd be a huge bump for the Wolverines if they can get him back, kind of get their running game back on track. Not that Marshall hasn't been doing a good job, but it's always nice when you have a 1-2 punch, and I think Haynes is better than Marshall. You want to see Bryce Underwood kind of take another step in his progression. He's been putting up good numbers through the air, minus the turnovers. If he can limit the turnovers while still getting his, that'd be very impressive. And hopefully they take care of business in College Park. All right, next game we're going to go over Nebraska at Penn State, minus 7.5. Penn State minus 7.5. Over under is 45.5. I think this game opened at minus 9.5 for the Nittany Lions, which kind of shocked a lot of people. Even though Nebraska has their backup quarterback, Latifin, he played well the previous week. They didn't ask him to do too much, but when they did ask him to make throws and make plays on the field, he did. Penn State obviously getting some respect for that roster they have. It's still a very talented roster, top 15 to top 10 roster in college football. But also Penn State just got their first conference win of this year, and also first win since the James Franklin firing. So if there could be a hangover for a team has 4 wins, this could be it right here, especially because Nebraska, I think there's some added motivation for the Cornhuskers here. And maybe the players don't think about it, but definitely if you're a Nebraska fan, you think about it, where Penn State was rumored to get Matt Rule before he signed the extension at Nebraska. So Nebraska's probably looking at it like Penn State thinks they can poach our coach. They think their program is so much better than our program, where our coach will just leave at the drop of a hat. So I know Cornhusker fans are pretty fired up for this matchup, and obviously they're staying pretty level-headed and not getting too cocky, because Cornhusker fans would never do that. The real thing for this game is Penn State going to show up? If they show up, I kind of expect them to win by a touchdown. I think this line is more accurate now than the 9.5 point spread originally. But if they don't show up and they've kind of mailed this season in, they got their win and they're ready to kind of just move forward, then Nebraska's definitely at a chance to pull off an upset, if you can still call it that. I would love for that to happen as someone holding a Nebraska over 7.5 win ticket. That would be great, because I would rather them get this win this week and not have to sweat it out against Iowa in rivalry week. But hey, beggars cannot be choosers. All right, final game before we get into our picks. Like I said, it's kind of a light show when it comes to the Rays Chalk Talk, or the big game breakdown, just because it's SEC Cupcake week, so I'm not going to be breaking down Alabama at Eastern Illinois or Auburn at Mercer, or Georgia getting 45.5 points, or laying 45.5 points against Charlotte. Sorry. Maybe if you get enough requests in the comment section, I'll do an impromptu video breaking down those 3 games, but I doubt I'll get those requests. Last game is another SEC game, a little SEC sandwich here for the Rays Chalk Talk. Tennessee at Florida. Florida is minus 4.5. Plus 4.5. Home dogs again for Florida. Over under set at 57.5. And you've probably seen the stat. Tennessee has not won in the Swamp since 2003. I think that is also around the same time that they last won in Tuscaloosa. So it's been about 20 years since Tennessee has has had a season where they beat either Florida or Alabama, 2 of their bigger rivals, on the road. So I think this is a year Tennessee does it. Florida's kind of a dead team walking in a sense. They've been working with this coaching search and interim head coach for as far too long to kind of keep the train moving. Tennessee still has a lot to play for in the sense of hey, they can finish a 9-3 team, get a bowl game, get to 10 wins. Another great building block for a Josh Heupel program. After a year where let's just play this through real quick if you're a Tennessee fan. Once the Nico news broke during the offseason, and I told you, hey, this sucks. I know you're feeling some type of way about this, whether what side you're on. But don't worry, you're going to finish the season 10-3. Um, you're going to also be in a chance to win the Georgia game and take them to overtime. Um, Joey Aguilar is going to be the leading passer in the SEC. I think Tennessee fans would be pretty content with that season and how it played out. They'd probably be like, if Joey Aguilar is the leading passer and we took Georgia to overtime, how the hell did we finish 10-3? Well, your defense definitely not what it was supposed to be, or a huge regression from the year prior at least. Um, so that's kind of how they're at this point. But I think this is another. I don't want to say get the monkey off your back, but kind of get the monkey off your back for Josh Heupel and the Volunteers. Get a win on the road in the swamp and kind of break the voodoo or curse that they have going on there. All right, going through my picks of the week. Um, I've already said it, a light week with the big games and a light week for my picks now. You guys know me, I like to fill up the card, but only have 9 picks at the moment. So, first one is a Friday night game, and it's not the Florida State NC State game. It is the Hawaii versus UNLV over 64.5. That game is going to be played at Allegiant Stadium. Fast turf there, fast track, so I like taking the over in that. Excited to watch that game solely because I love the story of Micah Alejado and their kicker. I'm not even going to try to pronounce their kicker's name, but being from Japan, transferring to some or going to some Midwest JUCO school and then ending up in Hawaii and hitting some major kicks this year is just a great story. Next one, I've kind of already hinted at it. Missouri, Oklahoma under 42.5. I don't see how Missouri's. It worries me a little bit in the sense that this game could be 10-17 going into the fourth quarter and look like, hey, no one's been able to move the ball all day. It could be 13-10 is probably more realistic. No one's moved the ball all day, and then just some explosive plays on the ground happens for both teams, and we kind of get in this scenario where I'm going to have to start sweating something out where I had 21 points, 22 points to play with going into the fourth quarter. But I just don't. Missouri's offense looks incompetent. Oklahoma's offense looks incompetent. Both have very disruptive defensive fronts, which could lead to turnovers. But I'm still going to take the under there at 42.5. Next game, it almost made it on the big game breakdown. I'll talk about it a little bit longer for these picks. But the pick I'm taking is Pitt plus 2.5. I think Pat Narduzzi really meant it when he said the Notre Dame game didn't matter. Hey, just win the next 2 games and you'll be good to go. I feel like he really feels like, yeah, I didn't really take that game so seriously. I thought we were going to be outmatched to begin with. So I was not worrying too much about it. There's been rumors that he was doing installs for the Georgia Tech game this week prior in preparation for the matchup against Notre Dame. So I think they also just have a kind of a bounce back spot, and unfortunately, Haynes King's been having an amazing year. But something you've had to worry about him in the past is how healthy can he stay, how long can he sustain this, and I like the Pitt Panthers in this game catching 2.5. I would probably just take the money line in all honesty, but it's the ACC, so if I get 2 points, I'm going to take 2 points. Next game I already mentioned, Nebraska plus 7.5. I think they can keep it close. I think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder, and I think Penn State, the program, is just kind of exhausted at this point. Taking Arkansas plus 8.5. The under 59.5 in the Oregon USC game, and I'm also taking USC plus 10.5, and then taking Kansas Iowa State over 55.5 and taking the Golden Gophers, Minnesota plus 3.5 on the road against Northwestern. All right, hey, a shorter episode of Ray Hall talking college ball, but I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Next week, obviously, is going to be an abbreviated schedule. I don't know what it looks like just yet. Probably a combination of a Sunday reaction show, a Tuesday reaction show to the college football playoff, or maybe just a super long episode on Tuesday morning that comes out, kind of previewing the week, and then also giving my prediction for the college football playoff. I don't think I'm going to get a video out on Thursday/Friday. Getting one out on Friday really wouldn't do you guys too much good anyways, with half the games, the rivalry games being played on that day. So expect a longer video on Tuesday. No video on Friday, but Sunday, another reaction video of the whole weekend. Uh, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. A big reason why Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday is because of college football. I love the rivalry weekends. I think it's some of my favorite memories of a kid include my grandmother. She would always bring like 15 pies to Thanksgiving, right? That was what she was in charge of. And she wouldn't bake them, but she would go to the store, order all 15 different types of pie. They weren't all 15 different types. There's probably about 5, maybe 6 pies. There's always a cherry pie, always a pumpkin pie, always a chocolate pie. I think there'd be an apple, and then possibly like 1 or 2 random ones. A coconut one, because my family loves coconut too. Um, so I just remember would be eating like my 5th slice of pie on a Saturday, watching these games with my dad. So that's always a fond memory for this holiday. And then also just the idea of just having abundances of food is a huge thing for me. Um, so I'm going to enjoy this Thanksgiving holiday. I'll be traveling. I'll be spending it with some family. Hopefully you guys are having some good plans, but find yourself glued to a couch and TV on Friday and Saturday to watch what I expect to be a pretty crazy rivalry weekend. Like I've already said, I'll plug it again. Please like, subscribe, rate, comment, leave a question or just how you're feeling about the overall show. And I'll try and get back to you. And follow me on Twitter or at X at RayHall_CFB. Appreciate it.